The Detroit Pistons lost a real tough game to the Boston Celtics after coming back late and making it a game. They fall short to Boston at Little Caesars Arena, but they finally got their first good game since moving Killian Hayes to the bench from their backup point guard. We're going to talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Kahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Kahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Use promo code Locked On. So the Detroit Pistons welcomed the Boston Celtics at Little Caesars Arena. Jaylen Brown did not play in this game for the Boston Celtics, and the Pistons ended up losing this game nonetheless by a score of 111-99. So in the first half, the Pistons actually played pretty well, I thought. Jason Tatum was missing a few bunnies, whatever, and that probably contributed to it. And in the third quarter, Tatum really woke up. He ended up with 34 points in this game. And the Celtics ended up extending it to like a 20-point lead. But then in the fourth quarter, in a rally led by Killian Hayes, the Pistons were able to cut this lead to 5 points before eventually losing the game nonetheless down the stretch. There's a few areas that I want to go with this game, but the very first place I want to go with it, and it was something that maybe we could have talked about in the last podcast, but I chose not to. I wanted to give a lot of props to the guys we talked about in the last podcast. And it's the Killian Hayes off the bench experiment that we're seeing lately. So 5 games ago, or 6 games ago now, Dwayne Casey made a change to the starting lineup after the blowout loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, that Killian Hayes would be coming off the bench and Alec Burks would be in the starting lineup. And I believe I know we made a podcast when that decision was made. Obviously, I was not very happy about it. We had a whole podcast about it. I wasn't a big fan of it. And to be honest, I'm still not a big fan of it, but it's going to be the plan moving forward, obviously, and there's no change in that. So in the 5 games since that, Killian Hayes had not played well at all. In those 5 games, he was averaging 8 points a game, 5 assists a game, but on 31% shooting and 27% shooting from deep. Was not shooting the ball very well at all. Obviously, he had that game against Dallas where he was 3 of 16 and 2 of 10 from deep. That really contributed to how bad he has been shooting. But he had not played well coming off the bench. And one of the biggest criticisms from me was that you finally had this dude who, in his third year, was your 7th overall pick. In his third year, finally looked like he had turned the corner, and he had been one of your best players for the last 2 to 3 months. And for whatever reason, I don't think any of us really understand the reason. We all have our own hypotheses of why they decided to go this way. But nonetheless, they decided to go this way, and he had played well. He hasn't played well since the benching, and it had people like me questioning, well, is he going to be able to adjust to this? Because now he's looking like a way different player. He's not hitting any shots. And finally, for the first time since coming off the bench, he had a really good game. And what made this game even better for Killian Hayes was that he started off 3 of 10. He wasn't shooting very well. He started off 0 of 3 from deep. He was 3 of 10 to start off, but he kept shooting. He remained confident, and he opened up. I believe he scored 11 points in the fourth quarter for the Pistons. And hit back-to-back threes to start the game off, then hit another 3 later on a fast break. He was playing really well in that fourth quarter, added another dribble pull-up. He was really starting to take over the game for the Pistons in the fourth quarter. He also had a few really good defensive plays on Jason Tatum. Also, I want to give props real quick talking about defense on Jason Tatum. There were a few defensive possessions by Saddiq Bey in that fourth quarter where I feel like Saddiq Bey played like the best defense I've seen him play all year. I want to give him credit for that because it's a tough task to guard Jason Tatum when he gets rolling like that. And I thought Saddiq Bey, even though Tatum still scored on him plenty of times, it's Jason Tatum. I thought you saw Saddiq Bey lock in on that end and give it his all for probably the most we've seen him at any point this year. And I thought he actually had a few really good possessions that stopped Tatum from scoring. So wanted to give Saddiq some credit there real quick. But yeah, so Killian Hayes finally had a good game off the bench. He had 17 points, 9 assists in 32 minutes of action. If you guys remember, I told you guys what Killian Hayes had been playing like when he plays over 30 minutes this season. So before this game, when he plays over 30 minutes, that's 20 games, he's averaging 16 points a game, 8.1 assists, shooting 45% from the field, 35% from deep, with a 54 true shooting percentage. So another game he plays over 30 minutes, he plays well. So I think, and this is something that I tweeted out, and it's going to be something that I try to do a little bit less of. I feel like I don't feel like I microanalyze as much, but I'm going to try to check myself if I feel like I am. I feel like we as a fan base, we need to stop microanalyzing every single game of these young players' careers. Now, if it's a trend and it's something over a longer sample size, then sure. But we have to stop playing this game of wishy-washy. One game we love them, one game we hate them. We have to be better than that. And it's something I've done too. It's something that I've fallen victim of because you guys know I was pretty damn mad about Killian Hayes coming off the bench. But the matter of the fact is that when you take a guy and put him in the bench role and you expect him to play in fewer minutes and make the most of fewer minutes to where he's not playing, he can't play himself into the game as much, it's probably going to take him some time to adjust. And I feel like we saw that a little bit with Saddiq too at the beginning of the year, and we saw it with Killian Hayes. Now, it's only one game. Hopefully, he continues to play well. But I feel like that's something that the Pistons, it's not a problem that they have. It's just something that I feel like these two players specifically it's something they need to adapt to and learn. And I'm talking about Killian Hayes and Saddiq Bey. I feel like both of them, the more minutes they play, the longer they can play into a game, the better they look. A lot of games, they start off slow, they start off missing, but Saddiq and Killian both, there's been many, many times this year, which is a real good testament to them that they're able to play through their mistakes and play through a cold shooting night to turn it into a good night. But there's been many nights when we've seen them start slow and be able to play like 30 minutes, and they end up playing their way through it and picking up steam and having a good game. When you're coming off the bench, that's not the case. So it's something that they're going to have to adjust to. Killian Hayes is going to have to adjust to. Saddiq Bey is going to have to adjust to. And look, it's something that they have to learn. And it's going to be a bumpy road now. There's going to be some ups. There's going to be some downs to it. But at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you want to be able to look back and say they ended up getting to where we want them to be at, and we feel confident about it. So, yeah, Killian Hayes had a really nice game off the bench. Saddiq Bey didn't have as good of a game. He had 14 points on 15 shots. This is the one game. Now, he still had quite a few drives. It was more so in the second half when the game got out of hand. Second half, I thought he had a few drives that were really bad, that he forced a lot of shots that he shouldn't have. But outside that third quarter, really, where I feel like that was where he really played pretty poorly. Outside of that, I don't feel like the numbers really do him as much justice. I thought he actually played a fine game. He had 4 assists, and he made a few passes that we hadn't seen him make at any other point throughout the year, really. And I really like seeing that from him. But overall, I feel like the bench unit or the bench duo of Killian Hayes and Saddiq Bey, you're seeing them find ways or start to develop and realize how to play off the bench a little bit. I feel like over the last few games, you saw a lot of Saddiq Bey was soaking up a lot of the possessions and taking a lot of shots, and Killian Hayes was kind of, off to the side. In this game, I thought the Pistons and Dwayne Casey did a really good job of playing through the both of them. They balanced it really well between the two, and they had the 3 surrounding players around them just play off of them. And in the the second quarter, where the beginning of the second quarter, end of the first quarter, Saddiq Bey and Killian Hayes were leading a lineup to play really, really well against the Celtics. They were leading a really good spurt. So I think they're starting to figure it out a little bit, not just them, but the coaching staff, how to play with both those guys coming off the bench. This was a really good game to see from them and the bench unit in totality. So hopefully they, after seeing this, they're able to kind of, take it and play that way moving forward and figure out how to use them moving forward. But definitely a good game to see from them. And Dwayne Casey actually said, before we move on, I wanted to move on, but I just remembered this. I want to make sure I mention this. Dwayne Casey said before this game that he feels like that when this team is winning, that off the bench role for Saddiq Bey is probably the role he's going to be at. He feels comfortable with it, and he thinks Saddiq Bey is going to play well in it. We talked about that on the last podcast. That's exactly what I said. But you could probably say the same thing. If Killian Hayes is going to be on this team moving forward, his role is going to be a backup point guard. So, whether they're happy about it, whether it takes some time adjusting, whether they're mad about it at first, whatever, they're going to have to get adjusted to that, and they're going to have to play, well off the bench, because that's probably going to be their role moving forward. So give it some time. I know myself included. I've been a little bit, quick to judge some things with those guys, but give them some time. Give both these guys some time to figure out the roles off the bench. Killian Hayes just had his first game good off the bench, and Saddiq Bey has been giving us a lot to like off the bench lately. So just give these two guys some time. I think they could be a pretty good tandem off the bench if they figure out how to make it work, which it looks like they're trying to or starting to against the Boston Celtics. But that's all I've got on that, man. Let me know what you guys thought about the game from Killian Hayes and Saddiq Bey as a tandem off the bench tonight in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, look, man, Jalen Duren is starting to get we don't appreciate what we're seeing from him enough. And when we come back, I really want to talk about what we're seeing from the 19-year-old, the youngest player in the NBA, what we're seeing from him at this age. We need to make a bigger deal out of it. And we're going to when we come back. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I got the thing for you. You got to try Built Bar. With Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. You don't have to go to Built.com. You can still go to Built.com, but you don't have to anymore because now they have them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to the Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Head to your local Walmart or Sam's Club or go to Built.com to try the best protein bar ever, Built Bar. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So Jalen Duren in this game against the Boston Celtics. Now, yeah, he had a matchup for himself, man. Robert Williams, I think Robert Williams is like one of the archetypes, like one of the comparisons, I should say, not archetypes. One of the comparisons that Jalen Duren has gotten so far in his career. He's gotten a lot of them, but basically he's gotten the archetype comparison of Robert Williams. That's what I was trying to say earlier. And he went against him tonight. And that's a tough matchup for him, especially as the youngest player in the league. That's a tough matchup. But he held his own. And he did more than hold his own. Robert Williams had 15 points and 15 rebounds. Jalen Duren had 7 points and 14 rebounds. He only took 4 shots. Robert Williams took 9. They looked for him a little bit more on lobs, and Robert Williams got a little bit more, aggressive on offensive rebounds and put him back in. But as far as it goes on the glass, Jalen Duren was keeping up with them. He was playing really hard, Jalen Duren. And he was doing a pretty damn good job on Robert Williams until the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, Robert Williams started to get free a little bit, started to get a few offensive rebounds. At one point in the fourth quarter, Jalen Duren gave up an offensive rebound to Robert Williams. You saw him hit himself in the head real quick and kind of motioned the box out sign. It was like telling himself, man, I got to box out. Have to box out. Box out. Like he was talking to himself, trying to remind himself, come on. You got to remember, you got to box this guy out. You have to box him out. And that's something he's going to learn as he continues to play more, as he gets more experience. That's just something he's going to deal with. But listen, guys, what Jalen Duren is currently doing is not giving nearly enough credit, not nearly enough attention from Pistons, the guys who cover the Pistons, people around the Pistons, people like me who have to make content all the time about the Pistons every day. The fan base, I don't even feel like is giving them enough credit. I don't feel like anyone is giving enough credit to what we're seeing from Jalen Duren. I'm going to make this clear to you guys again. Jalen Duren is the youngest player in the NBA. He is 19 years old. He should not be this good already. He should not be this good already. He should not. This shouldn't be. Now, since starting, over his last 22 games, he is averaging 10 points, 10.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and he's shooting 69% from the field. Again, that's before tonight's game where he had 7 points and 14 rebounds. And one of the biggest things that we've seen from him over the last 22 games, too, that people just haven't talked about, I don't feel like, people just haven't even mentioned it, is the fact he's shooting 72% from the free throw line. You guys remember at the beginning of the year, he couldn't make a free throw, and everyone was like, oh, we got another Andre Drummond. The first 23 games of his career, he was shooting 46% from the free throw line. We're like, oh, God. Another big guy of this archetype, grabs rebounds, plays defense, lob threat, all that kind of stuff, but can't hit free throws. Here we go again. That was in his first 23 games. But since then, he is shooting 73% from the free throw line, and the makes are looking good. His form looks good. We're seeing improvements from him in just about every single area. He still has a long ways to go defensively. He's the youngest player in the NBA. He's not going to be good defensively when you compare it to legit NBA players or legit NBA centers. It's not going to happen. But where he was at the beginning of the year to where he is now is such a massive improvement. And it took the Pistons. Just think about this. This is really what will tell you it. It took the Pistons 24 games. 24 games into his career before they were like, oh, that's the best big man on our team. He's the best center on our team. He's the best big on our team. 24 games into his career, they started him. At 19, it took 24 games into his NBA career for them to say, oh, that's our best big guy. Let's start him. Like, I know the Pistons don't have world beaters in their front court, but nonetheless, that's a pretty damn good compliment. You have to be playing pretty damn well for that to happen. So, look, I know that, this podcast specifically, we spent a lot of time talking about Killian Hayes during his great stretch. You guys know I'm a big fan of Killian Hayes. We spent a lot of time talking about it. Recently, I've tried to spend even more time talking about Jaden Ivey because he's played really well over the last 20 games or so. He's really turning it on. We'll talk about him a little bit later, what we saw from him in this game. But we talked about Jaden Ivey a lot. Killian Hayes a lot. I feel like Saddiq Bey also has been talked about more on the podcast. Maybe even Isaiah Stewart. Jalen Duren, for some reason, and it's a mistake I've made as well, but I feel like almost everyone in the Pistons community has made this mistake of just overlooking, and I think it's gotten to a point where we're just expecting this from him. Like, we think 14 rebounds, oh, that's Jalen Duren. That's just him. That's what he does. No, that should not be what we're doing. If this was 25-year-old Andre Drummond, yeah, oh, we have 7 years of evidence. Yeah, he's 25 years old. Yeah, that's what Dre does. Dre gets rebounds. He's going to get a double-double. That's what he does. Jalen Duren how many games is Jalen Duren into his career? Jalen Duren is 46 games into his career as the youngest player in the NBA, and we've already gotten accustomed to saying, oh, a double-double for Jalen Duren? That's normal practice. That's another day at the office. If that's another day at the office for a 19-year-old guy, what's a normal day at the office going to be when he's 22, 23, 24? I need people, and this is another thing. This is another scary thing to think about if you're opposing teams, which, by the way, I'm calling them to steal the draft. I said this on Twitter, and there is one other guy that I think probably challenges him, and I may give it over simply because of how far down he was taken, and that's Walker Kessler, who's been really good. He was taken 22nd, even later than Jalen Duren. So I don't understand people said he was the steal of the draft. But Jalen Duren, I think, is the steal of the draft. What's even scarier for opposing teams, and I don't think Pistons fans even realize this yet either, he's 19, averaging a double-double. His prime is 8 years away. He's 8 years away from his physical prime from what is usually NBA players' primes. In 8 years, he'll be 26, 27. We're what, 6 to 7 years away from him being 25. We're not even close to the dude's prime, and we're already at double-double as everyday practice for him. We got 8 years to go. Where's he going to be at then? Like, that's another thing that I don't feel like a lot of us really understand is that Cade's another 5 years away from hitting his prime. Jaden Ivey's like 6 to 7 years away himself. Like, I know everything has to be right now. We want to see jumps right now. But my goodness, man, imagine Jalen Duren in another 8 years. 8 years, he's not going to be 30 at the back end of his career. Like, he's going to be in the middle of it, probably just starting his prime. And we're already at a point where a double-double is normal practice for him. He's so good, man. He is so good. And I'm sure some people may argue against this, but I really do think he's like a top 5 rookie this year, man. What he's doing at this age consistently over and over for this Pistons team, it's crazy stuff, dude. It's crazy. He's playing so well for a 19-year-old, for a rookie. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see what he looks like next year. Just give him one more year to get better. Who knows what we're going to be seeing from him? I don't feel like we've really seen his passing ability unlocked. I feel like you could, at one point, you're probably going to be able to play through him at the high post as the hub of your offense. That's going to be like, I feel like that's where he's going to get to one day. And we're not even close to that yet. He's a monster, man. He's a monster. However you feel about the Pistons' young core, they got Cade. I think a lot of people would say Jaden Ivey's been what they expected. Jalen Duren has been way higher than I think anyone could have expected. So as long as you got those 3 guys, you should feel pretty good. You should feel pretty good. And whatever happens with the 2020 draft class, whether one of them becomes a star, one of them ends up breaking through becoming a starter, or they end up getting traded or let go, that would be tough and sad to see that. But at the very least, you know you hit on at least 3 players. You don't know how high they'll get. You don't know how great they'll be. They may peak out somewhere. They may not be as great as we think they'll be. But you know, I think you can say for a fact that you know these 3 players, Cade, Ivey, and Duren, they are hits. They're going to be NBA players, and they're going to be part of your team unless they're included for a trade for a star, obviously, for a long time. And Jalen Duren, man, I feel like he should get, and this is even a knock on Ivey. Ivey's been good, but my goodness, what Duren's doing at this age is crazy. So I just want to give Jalen Duren his props, man, for, 10 minutes of the second segment. Man, I don't feel like we give him enough credit, dude. I really don't. I don't feel like everyone gives him enough credit. It shouldn't be just like, oh, that's him. We need to be making a big deal of this every time it happens. It's crazy stuff. But let me know what you guys think about Jalen Duren's rookie season thus far in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, Jaden Ivey, another game of Point Ivey under the belt. How did this one go? Are we seeing any trends, anything to pick up on? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. Let's say on Super Bowl Sunday, you want to take the over on Patrick Mahomes passing yards, the over on Jalen Hurts rushing yards, but let's say the Pistons also play that day. Let's just make that up and say you want to take the over also on Jaden Ivey's points and the over on Jalen Duren's rebounds. With PrizePicks, you can put that into the exact same entries. You simply pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so I have like a little mini rant that I'm going to go on at the very end of the podcast. So if you want to stay tuned till the end of the podcast, make sure you do that. But real quick, Jaden Ivey, he had 14 points tonight, 5 of 12 shooting, 5 assists to just 1 turnover, 3 of 5 from the free throw line. Jaden Ivey's free throw struggles is perplexing to me because he's been, I tweeted this out today, he's in the 89th percentile in unguarded catch and shoot threes. He has 65 possessions of those. So he's basically an elite catch and shooter when he's open. When he's open, he's basically one of the elite shooters so far this in the league. That's not exaggerating. He's is in the 89th percentile. But for someone who's shooting so well on catch and shoot jump shots, you usually think someone who's shooting well from beyond the arc will be a good free throw shooter. And he struggled at the line. Now, he's not like awful. He's not like Ben Wallace numbers or anything, but he's hovering around 71% from the free throw line over the last 22 games on the season. He's shooting 71% from the free throw line. It's kind of perplexing to me. I don't really get it. He shouldn't be a 71% free throw shooter if you look at how he's looked in other areas. From, the mid-range recently, he's looked better. He's like I just mentioned with the catch and shoot three-pointers. You wouldn't expect him to be struggling like that from the free throw line, but it is what it is. I feel like what you've seen from him over the last 2 games, the Pistons have won against legit defenses, and he struggled a little bit more finding his shot, hitting his shot, and running the offense a little bit more. He struggled with that against the Celtics defense, and then the last game they went against the Phoenix Suns defense. It's not that you don't need to kill him for it. It's part of the growing pains that you're going to have with now putting him in uncharted territories. Remember, all of you guys told me that, heading into the draft, he's not a point guard. He's an off guard. He's going to play off of Cade. And now they're just throwing him into the point guard waters and asking him to handle all the point guard duties. So when he goes against good defenses like Boston, he goes against good defenses like Phoenix, you're going to see a little bit of struggle. But instead of focusing on him missing some shots, forcing some shots or whatever, I really want to focus on the fact, I want to give him credit that against this Boston Celtics defense, yeah, he may have struggled in some other areas, obviously, but he only had 1 turnover. He didn't turn the ball over a lot. He didn't force passes that weren't there. He wasn't, forcing tight window passes. I actually thought he started off the game in the first half doing a really good job of finding guys, getting into the paint and finding Duren on dump offs or corner kickouts. I thought he started off the game really well. Faded off a little bit towards the end, but still, he wasn't turning the ball over a lot. And I think that's a really good thing to see, despite some of the other things he was struggling with him, like I said, playing a position that he wasn't really supposed to be playing. And a lot of people don't believe he's actually a point guard. For him to go against defenses like Boston and not turn the ball over means he's starting to pick up on how to be a little bit more careful with the ball and starting to take priority of just how valuable the ball is to have. Like, your offense does not need to be turning the ball over. It's extremely valuable to not turn the ball over. And he did a good job of that tonight. So I'm not even going to focus on some of the other things he did that maybe he struggled with. I thought he did a really good job of taking care of the basketball. And that's a big improvement to see from him running the point guard position against a defense like Boston. Real quick before we end the podcast, the Pistons did it again. And look, we talked about it like a few weeks ago, that the fact the Pistons have like the worst, like, what was it? The 7th worst clutch offense of all time. I believe it was 7th. And every time they get to the clutch, they just go ISO Bojan. I don't understand it. Why? Why does that happen? So just to let you guys know what happened. So Bojan came into the game with 6 minutes and 21 seconds left in the game. The Pistons were down 7. We're coming back. Killian Hayes was on a burner. Since then, after that, they went away from Killian Hayes pick and roll. They brought Jaden Ivey back. They didn't even go to Jaden Ivey pick and roll either. They went to ISO Bojan. They made 2 field goals after that. Bojan had a turnover, and he had at least 2 to 3 other ones that I don't think they counted as turnovers because he went up for a jump shot and he got poked loose. So I don't know if they counted those as blocks instead, but I don't get it. I don't know why they do this every time in clutch games. I have to assume it's because they're tanking. They're doing it on purpose to lose the game because it doesn't work. ISO Bojan in the clutch has produced one of the worst clutch offenses we have ever seen in NBA history. So, like, please stop doing it. I don't get it. The Pistons will have good offensive going. They got a hot hand going. And every time it happens, they just say, screw that. We're going to go to ISO Bojan down the stretch. And what happens? Bojan's not a great ball handler. So teams just get up into him. They rip him up. They frustrate him. They knock the ball away when he goes up for shots. It happens every single time. It's not something new just to this game. This has happened every single time in the clutch. I don't know why they continue to do it. But That was my mini rant, man. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Go Pistons, stay safe, and peace out.